He is one of the most physically dominant athletes on the planet. He scores goals that make entire stadiums go silent. He walks onto the biggest stages in world football with a composure that makes him look completely untouchable. And he said, "I am nervous before every game. I am nervous for shooting a penalty." Most people in his position would never say that. They would perform the confidence. They would protect the image. They would say what footballers are supposed to say. That the pressure doesn't get to them, that they love the big moments, that nerves are for other people. Haaland said the opposite. And in doing so, he revealed something about psychological strength that most people spend their entire lives getting completely backwards. Welcome back to PsyWealth, Richie. Today we are covering something that I think is going to genuinely change how you think about confidence, pressure, and what it actually means to be mentally strong. Because Haaland said something recently that stopped me completely, and the psychology behind it is more powerful than anything I have covered on this channel so far. If you are new here, subscribe. Now let's get into it. Let me give you the full quote because every word matters. Haaland said, "A lot of footballers, we try to act cool with everything, saying I'm not nervous, etc., but I'm nervous before every game. I'm nervous for shooting a penalty. I don't think it makes you look weak saying it. I think it's the complete opposite." Now I want you to sit with that for a moment. Because what he is describing is not just personal honesty about his own experience. He is making a direct psychological argument that admitting vulnerability, specifically admitting nervousness, is not weakness. It is the complete opposite of weakness. And he is 100% right. And the research completely backs him up. Here is something that most people in high-pressure environments do that quietly costs them everything. They perform confidence they don't actually feel. They walk into rooms projecting certainty. They speak in a tone that says, "I have this completely under control," even when internally everything is uncertain. They mirror the behavior of the people around them who are also performing confidence they don't feel. And the result is an entire environment full of people pretending to be more certain than they are, none of them saying what they actually experience, all of them quietly isolated inside their own private nervousness that everyone else seems not to feel. Haaland named that pattern directly. A lot of footballers try to act cool with everything. He sees it, he understands it, and he consciously chose not to participate in it because he understood something that took real psychological courage to act on. The performance of confidence is not the same as actual confidence, and the gap between them costs you something real. Here is what is actually happening in your body and brain when you feel nervous before something important. Your sympathetic nervous system activates. Adrenaline floods your bloodstream. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing becomes shallower, your muscles tighten. Your focus narrows. Now here is the critical part that most people never learn, every single one of those physiological responses is identical to what happens when you feel excited. The nervousness and the excitement produce the same biological state. The only difference is the label your brain applies to what your body is doing. Psychologist Alison Wood Brooks at Harvard Business School conducted research showing that people who reframe their pre-performance nervousness as excitement, who say "I am excited" rather than "I am nervous," perform measurably better on subsequent tasks than people who try to calm themselves down, because trying to suppress nervousness fights your biology. Reframing nervousness as excitement works with your biology. Haaland doesn't suppress his nerves. He acknowledges them. He says clearly, "I am nervous." And in that acknowledgement, he stops fighting his own biology and starts working with it instead. Here is something that most people in high-pressure situations never fully understand. Suppressing your nervousness, pretending it isn't there, actually amplifies it. This is a well-documented psychological phenomenon called ironic process theory, sometimes called the white bear problem. When you actively try not to think about something, when you try to suppress a thought or a feeling, the act of suppression requires you to monitor for the very thing you are trying to suppress, which means you keep encountering it, which means the suppression effort itself keeps drawing your attention back to it. When you tell yourself "don't be nervous," your brain has to keep checking for nervousness to confirm that the suppression is working, and every check brings the nervousness back into your awareness. Haaland's approach does the opposite. He acknowledges the nervousness. He names it. He says it out loud. And in doing that, he stops fighting it. He stops the suppression loop. He frees up the mental bandwidth that was being consumed by the performance of not feeling what he was feeling. And that freed bandwidth goes directly into his performance. Here is something about what Haaland said that goes beyond personal performance psychology. He said a lot of footballers try to act cool. That is not just a personal observation. That is a comment about the culture of an entire industry, and by publicly stepping outside that culture, by saying I am nervous and I think, admitting it is strength not weakness he is doing, something that has a specific name in leadership psychology. He is modeling psychological safety, the concept, developed by Harvard. Business school professor Amy Edmondson describes the belief that you can express yourself honestly without fear of negative consequences, that you can admit uncertainty, nervousness, or difficulty without being judged as weak or incompetent. Research consistently shows that teams with high psychological safety outperform teams without it, that environments where people feel safe, being honest about what they actually experience produce better outcomes than environments where everyone performs confidence they don't feel. Haaland, by being publicly honest about his own nervousness, is essentially creating psychological safety for everyone watching. He is saying, if one of the best footballers in the world is nervous before every game and he is willing to say so, maybe you are allowed to be nervous too. And that permission, that normalization of honest human experience in high-pressure situations act as genuinely valuable to everyone who hears it. I want to spend a moment on what Haaland's quote reveals about the nature of real confidence, because most people misunderstand confidence completely. They think confidence means not feeling nervous, not feeling doubt, not feeling uncertain. They think it means having a guaranteed internal sense that everything will go well. But that is not what confidence is at all. Real confidence is not the absence of nervousness. It is the ability to act effectively in the presence of nervousness. It is the capacity to feel the fear and do it anyway. To feel the nerves before the penalty and step up and take it anyway. To feel the uncertainty before the big match and walk onto the pitch and perform anyway. Haaland scores penalties under the most intense pressure imaginable. Not because he doesn't feel nervous, but because he has developed the ability to perform through the nervousness rather than waiting for it to go away. That distinction between the absence of nervousness and the ability to function through it is everything. And it is a distinction that most people who spend their lives performing fake confidence never get to make, because they are too busy pretending. They don't feel what they feel to actually develop the skill of functioning through it. And now I want to speak directly to you, because I think this might be the most practically useful video I have made on this channel so far. How many times have you walked into a high-pressure situation, a presentation, an interview, a difficult conversation, a moment that mattered, and spent energy trying to suppress the nervousness you were feeling, trying to appear more certain and more composed than you actually were? And how much of the mental bandwidth that could have gone into your actual performance went instead into the performance of not being nervous? Haaland's message is simple and it is direct. Stop performing the confidence you don't feel. Start acknowledging the nervousness you do feel. Not to everyone around you necessarily, but to yourself, clearly, honestly, without judgment. Say, I am nervous, and then let that be true without fighting it. Because the energy you spend fighting your own nervous system is energy that could be going into your performance. And the moment you stop the fight, the moment you acknowledge what you actually feel and work with it, rather than against it, something changes. The nervousness doesn't disappear, but it stops being the enemy. It becomes information. It becomes fuel. It becomes the biological signal that what you are about to do actually matters to you. And things that actually matter to you are worth being nervous about. Erling Haaland is nervous before every game. He is nervous before every penalty. And he scores more goals than almost anyone in the history of the sport. Not despite the nervousness. Not after the nervousness goes away. Through it. While feeling it completely. That is not weakness. That is the complete opposite of weakness. That is what real psychological strength actually looks like. Not the absence of fear, the decision to act anyway. Subscribe to PsyWealth, Richie. Share this with someone who needs permission to stop pretending they are not nervous and start performing through it instead. We will see you in the next one.